you that had them before. They are forgivable if you can meet all the qualifications. They primarily can be used to support payroll, health insurance, and rent. And also, I think you can recover expenses for PPE supplies or any direct organizational expenditures you've had to make to accommodate some safe practices, buying thermometers and putting up plexiglass and things of that nature. The shuttered venue is a lot more complicated and probably harder to get, and it only applies to organizations that can really prove that they are an entertainment venue that has fixed seating. It's open to even large organizations, movie theaters, and so on. And there's not nearly as much money in that fund, so that one may be a little more difficult. You can apply for one or the other, but not both. And so one of the things we did in our organization, we did the calculus of which, we could have probably done the shuttered venue, but we decided that our chances were better with PPP. The first round of the shuttered venue funding is going to go to organizations that can prove that they lost 90% or more of their earned income. And we have yet to get a complete explanation of what they consider earned income. But since a lot of nonprofits get some income from donations, contributions, and grants, that might push the organizations into one of the later categories. And there's concern that the money just won't last through the first and second round. So that's something to consider when you're looking at that. And then for the independent contractors, I think they've simplified that a little bit from the last time, but that's obviously great for musicians, actors, anyone who can prove that they were, self-employed and working in the industry in 2019. And, I think you apply directly to the SBA you apply through the Treasury Department for that. There's a PPP application. Again, you can go to the SBA website and get this information. You would need your 2019 1040 Schedule C to prove that you were self-employed, and it can cover your living expenses, rent that you might pay for a studio if you're an artist, or an automobile if that's part of how you make your living, or an instrument if you're renting or paying on an instrument, those kinds of expenses. And some or all of those can be turned into grants or be forgiven. So again, there's pretty good information on the web about that or on the SBA website. But for those individual artists especially who have been so impacted, our actors, musicians, dancers, and so on, I think it's well worth looking at that because it's going to be some time yet before we really see, the performance situation improving. So if anyone else has more specific information or information to share on that, I'm happy to take comments from any of the rest of you. And I would suggest applying as soon as possible. It's first come, first served. So anyone that's planning to do that should move ahead pretty quickly. So, okay, let's move on to Dallas Arts Month. Several of us have been gathering a few times in the last few months with Jennifer and her crew. And Jennifer, you're welcome to jump in and update me. I don't want to put you on the spot, but we will probably be mostly virtual, but hopefully there will be a few things for people to do as people are venturing out once they've had their vaccinations. So the creative conversation, I think, is one of the great things that we will be continuing. And the topic that we have considered is... Hey,
Joanna, can I just ask everyone, if everyone could mute their microphones? There's a lot of noise coming from somebody. And I'm laughing, but...
Yeah, thank you, Charles. So we're looking at the concept of how the arts can be involved in the criminal justice system, in crime prevention, et cetera. And it will be a virtual creative conversation. And for those of you that have been involved in this in the past, you know, this was typically at the Moody Performance Hall. It was the mayor's initiative. And we've had, you know, quite a few of them over the years on a variety of topics. And this one really is now more in the realm of, you know, we're doing it ourselves. And we're hoping to engage the new police chief in this effort. So Jennifer, do you want to say anything about Arts Month and, you know, kind of where we're at on that?
Yeah, thank you so much, Joanna. And it's funny, my meeting just previous to this was our internal huddle in preparation for our Arts Month meeting tomorrow. The creative conversation will be on Monday, the 26th. It's a little bit of a weird Arts Month because the very first weekend is Easter, and that's usually a bit of a quiet, you know, it's hard for us to compete. So the Arts Advocacy Day, Joanna's already mentioned, on the 20th, and the 26th is the creative conversation. The Dallas Art Fair did announce they're moving to the fall. So that will not be happening in Arts Month, which historically, when it was Dallas Arts Week, that's kind of what all got it started. But we're thinking it's a little bit of a transition year. Last year, there was no Arts Month, so we are back. If you all have events and programming in April that you all would like us to highlight, it's never too soon to start sending that to Barbie Bernier. You probably get emails from her. You can always send it to me and I'll forward, because she's going to start populating a marketing plan, and we'll be sharing that as well with AT&T Performing Arts Center that handles a lot of our marketing through the culture calendar, that sort of thing. So that is moving. And then I feel like there was one other thing. Oh, Art 214, which is all of our cultural centers. They were all ready to go last year when COVID hit, obviously in March. So that they are resuming Art 214, and that will be happening in all of the cultural centers as well. So those are the highlights from our end.
And
Any
I think
questions?
to add there, Jennifer, is that the Texas legislative session will still be in process at that time. And there may be, you know, work that we'll have to do around particularly the TCA budget. And I'll have an update on that in just a minute. But, you know, there will, and we'll be looking at the usual challenges on the local level, challenges on the state level, and challenges at the federal level. So, but we will be able to access legislators if we need to during that period. We can do some targeted advocacy with them.
And I don't know if you're already watching City Council, but there's no question we're going into election season locally. So.
Okay, thanks, Jennifer. Any questions about our Dallas Arts Month 2021? And Jennifer, virtual and live performances or events are welcome. Is that correct?
Yes, and what's interesting is a lot of the live are still the outdoor things, like the Arts Advocacy Day. You know, we're still maintaining social distancing. None of that's changing. I've been asked a lot recently when we think we'll be able to go increase indoor capacity, and no one's gotten any word that that's going to be anytime soon. So it'll still look and feel kind of the way it is now, but hopefully people will have their vaccines. And so we'll start seeing our rates come down as a community.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. So that's a good segue into our Dallas Arts Advocacy Day. So of course we had to cancel it this past year in 2020. And so we are going to try something different. We want to do it outdoors, kind of almost like a picnic. It will be April 20th from noon to 1:30. And we're looking at probably doing it in front of the wind spear underneath the canopy and doing box lunches. We will be able to give the award to Ann Williams, the Jack Alder Award, and well-deserved. And we were, you know, really, really sorry that we had to postpone that last year. So we'll be able to really, you know, do that part of it. We'll have our artist statement, as we always do. We'll have a performance by one of the CAP artist groups. And then rather than bring in a keynote speaker, given that, you know, things are going to still be kind of up in the air, we thought instead we would focus just on the local situation, on the status of the arts community, on the resources that might be available, on, you know, where things are at in terms of getting things open, opportunities to help groups get to doing live performances again, and all of the things in and around, just trying to get back to some sort of normal for the arts community. And so we don't know quite what that looks like yet, but we feel like it's a good check-in for all of us to be able to just get the lay of the land and share information. So that may be in the form of a panel discussion, but we're still working on that. And it will be $35 as it has been before, which mostly just covers the lunch costs and some of the ancillary costs around doing that. But we feel like we can safely do it. Hopefully a lot of people will be vaccinated by then, but we can require masks and keep people far apart, and we can do it outdoors, which is much safer. So, and the other thing there, we would have the option of moving into the lobby if we have a really bad weather day. But since it is towards the end of April, we hope that we would be having nice weather. So, so mark your calendars for that. We'll want to see everybody there. It's, it's important. We'll also be, working on our strategy for our local elections and any Texas legislative work that we need to do. So, any questions, comments, or suggestions about Arts Advocacy Day? Well, we're moving at light speed here. This is pretty fast for us.
I wonder if the mayor has any affiliation with Arts Advocacy Day or the month, actually. It had been the mayor's month. So is the new mayor likely to, or is there any word on that?
Probably less likely.
Oh,
We just, he has not engaged. And he really didn't have a chance to last year because we had to cancel. But I think with the COVID situation and the kind of the budget situation we're in, I'm not sure that we will be able to get his attention for this. But we are hoping to. We will, of course, invite all of our council members, as we always do. We'll invite the mayor and hope that he comes. We'll invite the city manager. We'll invite our cultural affairs commissioners. So, just as we always do, it's a chance for us to interact with them and get to know them better and have them get to know us better.
okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks. Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or comments on Arts Advocacy Day? Okay, then let's move on to the Texans for the Arts. They are in the midst of doing their virtual Texas Arts Advocacy Day. It actually kicked off yesterday, and I know a lot of you were with us for that. It is free. The next session, which is the really important session, is on the 9th of February. And that is from 9 until noon is the first session with keynote speaker and breakout sessions and, a lot of good information on how to have a how to do successful advocacy with your legislators. And then legislative visits will be scheduled from 1 to 5. Obviously, those will all be virtual. Ann Graham is setting up captains for every legislator if possible. And Hannah's going to put the Eventbrite link into the chat right now for those of you that have not registered. But it is free. It is very important. And we do have a lot of work to do. The current information I have on where TCA stands with the Texas legislative session in appropriations, the House budget maintains $10 million for cultural districts and $250,000 for arts and military. And I believe the funding is flat for the TCA itself. So that's the good news. The not so good news is the Senate budget is only appropriated $6 million for the cultural districts, and that's a $4 million reduction. And they are maintaining the $250,000 for arts and military. And remember, it's a 2-year budget, so that would be split between 2 years. And then so we'll have a lot of work to do with the Senate, especially to try and get those numbers back up. If you'll remember, in the last legislative session, we were able to restore the cultural district funding that had been cut in the previous legislative session. And so we do not want to lose any ground, especially since the TCA budget is one of the very smallest parts of the giant state of Texas budget. And then the other concerns we have around hot tax, there's a lot of effort by a variety of legislators to dip into hot tax beyond what it currently covers, which is primarily, convention and visitor bureaus and the marketing that they do to bring tourism and so on. But arts and historic preservation has also been part of the allocation of hot tax. It's one of the permitted uses. So there are any number of initiatives taking a run at that hot tax, which would carve out probably nothing from the marketing portion that goes to the visitors bureaus and so on. It'd probably all come out of what now is going to arts and historic preservation. And so, of course, that would be a very bad thing, especially since right now hot tax is down to almost zero in a lot of places. And in Dallas, I think it's down to, maybe 20% of what it had been. And so there's not much there in the first place. And there's a lot of concern by the Texas Hotel Association and the Restaurant Association about further erosion of the hot tax. So in this case, we're allied with them to make sure that hot tax, stays as it is. And there is a wonderful, yes, Jennifer.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. When you have a minute, I just wanted to add a couple of things on this front.
Sure. So anyway, we will have some work to do. We have to keep an eye out for, for those flanking maneuvers that happen all the time in the legislative session where, you think you've stopped something or you've gotten to the goal line on something, and then suddenly things change over from another legislator or from another piece of legislation. So Ann Graham's keeping a good watch on that. We have a really good lobbyist, Shannon Gangrudi, who works for TFA, who is there every day checking on that. So, but if we need your help, we will be sending out emails and SOS, to get with your legislators to help us make sure we preserve the budget for TCA and cultural district funding and keep the hot tax the way it is. So Jennifer, go ahead with whatever you wanted to say.
No, this is great because I was actually on an interesting call with some other peers. Dallas is unique in that hot tax is not the majority of our funding. It's critical, and we don't want to lose any cent. But I don't know if you've been following the drastic cuts that Austin's had to make, both in their funding to artists and funding to organizations, but you can Google it. It's been very, 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 very draconian cuts. And that's because they are almost entirely funded by hot tax. So, when you're thinking about what it is in Dallas and what it's not, our general fund at the city is still by far and away the majority of OAC's funds. And then secondly, Visit Dallas was tasked with doing a cultural tourism strategic plan. And everyone thinks that cultural tourism is going to be faster to recover than conventions, because I think it's going to be a while before people are planning national conventions and putting people on planes to congregate in mass, at a convention hotel. We have a cultural tourism committee meeting, I think next Thursday, but I expect we will also be asking you all for input. So if you hear about that, that's what that is. It's actually one of the city manager's goals for this fiscal year, which kind of surprised me, is having a cultural tourism plan. But I think he heard council when he said Visit Dallas has got to serve our sector and market us. And so anyway, I just kind of shared that because I think they're all really related to HOT and us being part of that recovery.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Hey,
go ahead.
This is Mary Beth. I'm on the line with Visit Dallas, so I'm happy to take any questions. Jennifer is absolutely correct. We will have an update at the Cultural Tourism Committee meeting next week on how that is looking. We recently engaged a new creative agency for us to help with all of our visitor marketing, including our cultural tourism marketing. And that Slingshot is our new agency. And so we are really excited about what the campaigns that they're working on for us for a summer or spring and summer campaign. Obviously right now it's a little tough to put out too much messaging asking people to come here with the COVID pandemic. But we have some good data that's coming in that travel will start to pick up in the late spring and summer, and that will be leisure travel instead of convention and business travel. The strongest market right now is leisure travel, and we do believe that will continue to be the case for the coming months. Until vaccines become widely available and some of those other things where convention business feels more comfortable traveling again. So we are feeling like there's some positive news and some good outlooks coming the way, particularly as regards to cultural tourism. And we certainly will have an update next week, but I'm happy to, for anybody who won't be at that meeting for the committee meeting, happy to meet with you individually or provide an update. We're definitely here to help.
Mary Beth, can I ask you, do you know if, as they're looking at, kind of reading the tea leaves as to when and how we might see tourism recover, do they think it's going to be the drive markets first, or is it going to be more national?
Absolutely the drive markets. And that's the tourism that we are seeing right now. In which, historically Dallas hotels have been busiest during the weekday with business travel and then less so on the weekends. And we've seen a flip on that. So right now, the busier hotel stays are on the weekend, so it is that leisure travel. And drive market has always been strong in Dallas, which is a great thing. We've always had a strong drive presence. Particularly Houston is a huge visitor to Dallas, and that continues to be true. People feel safer driving than they do getting on a plane, and it's kind of staycations. We're seeing folks from nearby cities even come into Dallas and stay for the weekends and do that kind of more cultural tourism and kind of fun things versus your business traveler that may or may not be able to leave their hotel or the convention center. So there's definitely some opportunity here, and we've got some data on who is coming and who we think is going to come. Michael Radowski, who's our data analyst, will be giving a presentation at that meeting to talk about it a little bit more in depth.
Mary Beth, will there be a legislative update at that meeting as well on the issues around HOT?
We certainly can ask. Gary Sanchez will be giving the legislative update on that, and what he knows and what we're doing. We work with HanTax, which is the Hotel Association, and have a lobbyist on. HanTax employs a lobbyist to help with some of those concerns, and that's Scott Joslow is who we work with. And we are certainly happy to, talk about that at that meeting. Gary can give a little bit more in depth than I can on that.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Well, we'll keep everybody posted. Thank you, Mary Beth.
Hey, Joanna.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got data we can share with everybody too. So.
Joanna, Emilio Gomez from the Sheraton was telling us today that on a meeting of all the hotel industry that they're seeing an increase in hotel activity, but it's all local. It's all local. It's like she's saying, it's all driving and very local. They're not really planning on seeing, the kinds of travelers that we're used to seeing on airplanes coming in from other places until the spring of 22.
Okay.
Yeah, and Charles, on that, we hope to have some of it start as restrictions ease at in the fourth quarter of 21.
Sure.
But yeah, that's a long time from now, it feels like.
But at least we're going to get there.
Absolutely, we will get there.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, does anyone else have questions or comments about any of that? Okay, a couple other things I wanted to mention. We have some grant deadlines. The Moody Fund for the Arts grant deadline is the 29th of this month, so Friday. So hopefully anyone who's funded by OAC knows that they should get their grants into Moody. They've accelerated that process. So I think is Hector Garcia on this meeting? I guess not. Anyway, I encourage everybody to finish up those grants or get them started if you haven't. And then also the DACAC resiliency grants are due. And Hannah, do you remember the deadline on that?
That is the 1st.
Okay, so that one's coming right up as well. Another thing that I wanted to let you all know, and thank you to everyone who's been doing the surveys, that the joint survey between DACAC, and the Dallas Arts District on the impacts of the pandemic on the local arts community. So thank all of you who have participated in those surveys. We should have survey results hopefully within a few days, if not a week or so. And we're, clearly the impacts have been devastating and continue to be. So we will be sharing that information out to all of the organizations as well as the news media. And those surveys have helped so much with our advocacy efforts at especially at the local level, because it has really gotten through to our council members about, first of all, how important the arts are to the community, but also just how badly the arts have been hurt. So we feel like it's been a really important thing that we've been able to do and participate in. And so we will, as I say, have that information out very shortly. And then the last thing I wanted to make sure everybody was aware of, we have city council elections coming up in May. And the entire city council is up for re-election. And we have 3 that are termed out. Lee Kleinman, Jennifer Staubach Gates, and Adam Medrano are termed out. So we will probably see a number of people vying for those council seats in those districts. But we also know that most of the districts draw challengers. And so I just want to encourage everybody to stay engaged on the election. This is our chance to engage with candidates who may end up being, part of the leadership of our city. And so we will get an arts survey out to all candidates. We can't force them to respond, but we don't endorse candidates, but we will post any of the survey answers that we get back on the website for everybody to see. And we will be trying to engage virtually, probably for the most part, with candidates for the city council. The mayor is not up for re-election. He has a 4-year term rather than a 2-year term. A couple of the candidates, I think, are really going to have a hard election cycle on their hands. So we will engage. We will be getting out advocacy information to all of you on how you can help make sure that we're reaching everybody. If any of you has a personal relationship with a particular candidate or council member, please let me know, and we can certainly use the leverage there to advance the initiatives that are important to the arts groups and the artists. So I think that's all I had. Does anyone else have things they want to share or talk about or questions?
Me again. I just wrote an email to Basil Dua.
Mm-hmm.
There's too many Adams on that city council. Anyway, inviting him to come check us out, because he came by not last fall, but the year before, whenever that was, way back. And he seemed like a good person. So I invited him to come by the center, the South Dallas Cultural Center, because it's not open to the public, but group by group can make arrangements with John, and so I invited him to show up. It's just interesting that we're talking about that today, because today was the day I invited him to come by. So we'll see. But yeah, I do have met him.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I met him first at one of the brown bags. No, it was the afternoon. But anyway, that's where I first met him. And he's number 7, and trying to stay in touch, So I'll be happy to share or say whatever's, appropriate.
Well, thank you. He's been very supportive of the arts. And when we were trying to get some of the OAC budget restored in the last budget session, he was one of the council members that supported that initiative. So yeah, but yeah, we'll have one less Adam after this election.
Yes.
So, with Adam Madrano, who's right now the chair of the Quality of Life Committee, and he's doing a really great job with that. So we're happy about that.
Just a quick reminder, because I haven't sent out the email because it's been a crazy week, but we are going to do another roundtable, dance music roundtable on Friday at noon, the Zoom call, because people seem to like it. So pop in, pop out, at noon on Friday, and I'll send out the Zoom. If you're not on the list that I send out, just shoot me an email and I will add you to the list.
Okay, thank you, Charles. So I hope everybody is signed up with to get the vaccine. And you can sign up in Dallas County, Tarrant County, and Denton County. You don't have to be a resident. So I hope everybody is signed up with the various health departments. And anyone who has a doctor at UT Southwest, they have their own. They have their own list. So you're much more likely to get an appointment through them. So. Anyway, any other comments, suggestions, questions?
Me again. No, a couple friends of mine got their vaccines, the first round, at Parkland yesterday. So, it's a possibility as well.
Okay, well, good. All right, well, if we don't have anything else, it's good to see you all. Hope to see you in person before long. Please all be safe, wear your masks when you're out and about, and get those vaccines. And we want you, hale and hearty so that we can get this arts community back on track.
Yeah.
Well, take care, everybody.
Thank you, Joanna.
Thanks, Joanna.
Thank you all, as always.
Appreciate it.
Thank
All
you.
right, bye.